Peace, 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 peace. This is Rabbi Salam. As I like to always quote from the books of Bereshit, or what we call Genesis. Through thy seed, all families of the earth shall be blessed. So peace to all humanity. Blame it on the elders. Yes. Who do we blame for our condition? As a people, we blame it on the elders. Blame the elders. It's their fault why we are in the position, in the situation that we are in. If you noticed, the word elders subsequently has the word El in it. And we know El means deity or mighty. Correct? Yes. So, now we understand who the elders are. The elders are the mighty ones of the family. They are the heads of the generations. It's the elders. So according to the Torah, it was the elders or the ancestors of Israel who disrespected the Torah and caused their children to be subjected to all type of plagues and curses and things of this nature. It was the elders whose job was to preserve the Torah, the culture, and the tradition to the generations ahead of them. This is evident in the book of Deuteronomy, or deRs, when it talks about the Shema. And in the Shema, it tells us to teach our children to fear, respect, and love the Creator of all. It was the elders' job to administer the knowledge to the children. They failed at their job. Now, this is according to the Torah. The elders failed at their job. I want to give an example of the fact that the Els, or the elders, are the mighty ones of the generations. And it's their job to preserve the culture and tradition, the Torah of God. It's their job to teach the children the correct format to survive peacefully and keep the mercy and the grace of God among us. It was the elders' job to do this. So we must blame the elders. Mind you, elders, it's funny that El, which means mighty, is in elders. So the Els of our generation are our elders. They are the mighty ones of our families. So if the children are in a situation, a bad situation, whose fault is it? We have to blame the parents and the grandparents and the great-grandparents. So this is an example I want to give on the power of the elders and the the purpose and the responsibility that the elders held in Israel. So Shemot, chapter 3, or what we call Exodus, chapter 3, verse 16. In Exodus chapter 3, verse 16, this is just to show the responsibility of what the elders held. It's their responsibility to teach the Torah to the children. It was their responsibility to administer the tradition of the Torah. It was their responsibility to teach us the ways of God. It was the elders' responsibility. They are the elves. They are the mighty ones of our families. It was their responsibility. They neglected on their responsibility, and this is why we are in the position and situation that we are in today. It's because of our elders. Exodus chapter 3, or Shemot chapter 3, verse 16. Go assemble the elders of Israel and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob appeared to me and said, I have watched over you and have seen what has been done to you in Egypt. And I have promised to bring you up out of your misery in Egypt into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. The elders of Israel will listen to you. Then you and the elders are to go to the king of Egypt and say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. Let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifice to the Lord our God. So Moses went to the elders of Israel. Let's see, we have another example. There was a prophet like Moses, and his name was Joshua. Joshua was the prophet like Moses, okay, according to the Torah. So in Joshua, in the book 24 of Yeshua, or Joshua, verse 1, it says, Then Joshua assembled all the tribes of Israel at Shechem. He summoned the elders, leaders, judges, and officials of Israel, and they presented themselves before God. So who had held the responsibility of the Torah? It was the elders. It was the elders. Let's go to Deuteronomy. Now, since we're talking about the responsibility of the elders, and that our condition, our situation, even in 2018, is the responsibility of our parents and grandparents. They are the reason why we are in our situation today. Is our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. We have to blame them. It's the truth. You might not want to, but who else are you going to blame? Why don't you know your history? It was your grandfather and grandmother and father and mother that was supposed to teach you your history. But they allow the enemy, the government, the educational organization to teach you. We should know better as a people. Why are our children out here killing each other? Why do we have so many broken homes? Why are we so ignorant and unknowledgeable of common sense situations going on with it's the elders. It's the elders. That's who we have to blame. because the responsibility is on them. So Deuteronomy chapter 6, or deRs chapter 6. And I want to deal with the Shema, because we have to understand exactly, because us now, we, in this generation, 30, 40 years from now, we will be the elders. And what are we going to teach our children? Obviously, our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents was too afraid to speak up, to teach the truth to the people, to their children. And they allowed us to be misled by an outside source who had no aim on our prosperity. You have to blame it on the elders. Deuteronomy chapter 6. And I want to speak on the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commands that I give you today are to be on your hearts. This is the elder's job right here. Verse 7 of deRs, or Deuteronomy chapter 6. This is part of the Shema, people. This is part of the Shema. This is when it says Shema Yisrael. The Shema means to take heed, to inquire diligently, to take into great consideration of what you're hearing. That's what Shema means. So the Shema is something that we are supposed to take heed to. All right? Now, blaming this on the elders. I'm going to talk a minute because I have a little technical difficulties with this phone. I got one of these Obama phones. Right? Not the phone I'm on right here. I got it like a side phone. And it's like the worst ever. It's slow for no reason. Thank you, Obama. Matter of fact, what compelled me to even talk about this situation is because I was having a talk with my Issa, my wife, right? Because I had to get my birth certificate today for my jobs, IDs, and all that stuff, right? So I had to do some running around. So at the birth certificate place, I had to actually pay $25 to get a birth certificate. Like, I really thought that was out. That was just crazy, right? So while I'm standing online, the officers that was in the place was having a discussion, and one guy came out from the back, and I wasn't really paying attention to exactly what they were saying, but I heard him say something about he's a Trump supporter. And I turned around and said, I support Trump too. So, oh man, the faces, oh my God, everybody was like, why? So I was like, yeah. I was like, I support what he's doing. I'm like, the black people don't understand a helping hand when they see it and what's going on. I mean, even the king of Persia liberated the Jews, right? And let them exile their way back to Jerusalem. There was other outside people that liberated and helped the cause of Israel or Judah. So you don't see, I mean, even in the Tanakh it says that the Creator will cause our enemies to be at peace with us at some point. At some point, our enemies will seek our peace. And this is what Trump is doing. Do you understand that these Mongols, these Asiatic Mongols called Mexicans, right? And other immigrants are invading your country. Do you not understand that? Do you not understand that your children might not be able to find a decent housing because they're going to be turned away because they're not Spanish, or they're not African, or they're not West Indian, or they're not Hindu? Do you understand that when your children go out to look for a job, if they're not bilingual, if they don't speak Espanol, they might not get the job. If they're not light skinned, they might not get the job. They have to go and beg a person from another ethnicity to get a job. And these people are looking out for their own ethnicity. They're looking out for their own race of people. And those that share in their look or their complexion, they're looking out for themselves. These people have invaded our country. White folks have invaded our country, and they keep bringing more people in to invade. So if this guy Trump is putting their kids in cages and saying, no, you ain't coming up in this country, I support that. I don't know I don't understand what black people's problem is. I don't understand why. I ain't never seen a Mexican or Latino ever stand up for the cause of black people, for the ills of black people, for the condition of black people in this country. Yet, all these Latino and West Indian and African and Colombian and all these other races of people come here, and they use the civil rights legislation that our elders fought for in the 60s. They used the 1965 civil rights legislation to take over what we haven't even acquired for ourselves. These people come over here, they get business loans, grants, their kids go to college for free, right? And you saying, oh, that's messed up what Trump is doing to the Mexicans. These people have their own country. They have their own country. Oh, Africans coming over here and holding their nose up against us. But they don't even have running water or lights in their own continent. But they're smart, they're better than us? No. They're slaves. They come over here to be slaves. They own their own land in Africa. They own their own land. That's their land. Why would you leave your land to come and be a slave to the white man? And leave your family? Their own people is murdering and massacring them. The government of Africa is black. I hope you know this. So if Africans are leaving Africa and running away and coming to other countries for asylum, know that their own people are doing that to them. They need to go home and they need to confront their issues. They don't need to come over here and try to take what's ours because the white man is giving them things over us. Mexicans need to take their butts back to Mexico and fix Mexico. They need to go to war with the cartel and get them out of their country or whatever. They need to fix their country. West Indians need to go back to their little islands with their little flags and their little Caribbean parades, and they need to fix their country. They need to fight for civil rights legislation. They need to fight for affirmative action. They need to fight for fair housing. They need to fight for this, that, and the third. They need to fight to be treated as human beings. Don't come over and try to join the bandwagon on a fight that you did not participate in. You was in your country. Once you found out it was an open door, then you come over here and nobody's talking about that. Why? You have people, our elders that was there in the civil rights movement. They walked with Martin Luther King. They was there when my mother was in the riots in my city. There was race riots, which was going on in the mid to late 60s, which changed the dynamics of the urban neighborhoods in America. It shifted the demographics of the urban neighborhood, and this is when they created the suburbs for whites and immigrant whites. And they gave us the urban areas, and then look how they plagued the urban areas. But my mother goes back to Jim Crow, segregation. In 1960, was it 67, when we had the race riots in my city, she was 12 years old. They was not calling us African Americans when my mother was 12 years old. They was calling us Negroes. African Americans did not exist until the event of Jesse Jackson. Okay? One of your white appointed black leaders. Remember that. That's the guy that got Martin Luther King shot once Martin Luther King decided to wake up and stop working with the enemy and work for his people. So we have people that was here when there wasn't Mexicans here, Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. It was just black and white. That was the issue. It was black. So our parents, who was born in the 50s, they know. They was here. They remember when we couldn't vote. They remember when it wasn't no welfare. They remember when it wasn't no Social Security. They remember when it wasn't no Planned Parenthood. Well, Planned Parenthood always existed. But there wasn't no prenatal care or anything like that. It was none of that. Everything was hand over fist when it came to us. They was there when we didn't own anything. And we fought because white people owned everything in our communities and wasn't giving us jobs or nothing. So they fought and rioted and killed and was murdered so their children can have a chance that they didn't have. That's what the fight was all about. So, okay, the enemy passed legislations. They didn't take anything off the books, but they just put some extra stuff on it. They didn't take Jim Crow off the books, saying that America could never, ever do that again. They never said that. They never did that. They said, okay, we're going to create a legislation called affirmative action, being that these corporations have to hire you. Today, they don't call it affirmative action. They call it equal opportunity employment. But equal is for everybody. It's a generalization. That meaning that they can't turn away Spanish people. They can't turn away African people. They can't turn away Caribbean people from getting a job. Matter of fact, they hire them over us. Now, the new equal employment opportunity clause is for transgenders and gays. You can't turn away a man that comes in with a dress on and boobs. You can't turn him away because of the way he looked. But I don't remember Martin Luther King fighting for transgenders. I don't remember Martin Luther King fighting for Mexicans and Puerto Ricans. I don't remember him saying anything about Latinos or any other race of people besides white and black. But these people are using that legislation to get an upper hand over the people who fought for it. That legislation was for us. Our elders fought so we can partake in that legislation, and we're going to sit here and allow these people to come to this country and live good off of legislation that was created for us. Our elders did that for us. That happened in the 60s. I was born in the 70s. I got brothers and sisters that was born in the 80s. I was born in the 80s. So the children of the 70s and the 80s were supposed to partake in the affirmative action, in the voting rights, in the we didn't get a fair housing legislation passed, unfortunately. But we were supposed to continue to fight. But what stopped the fight was drugs. They neutralized the hood. They put heroin and cocaine and the next thing crack into the neighborhoods, which destroyed our elders and parents and stuff, and which destroyed the generations. So it was a generational plague that they put out here after those legislations was passed. They created, black folks in this country was Republicans all the way up into the mid-60s, when Martin Luther King, the appointed leader by the enemy, was Democratic. And in order to get these legislations passed, we had to go Democratic. Our elders went Democratic. And under the Democrats, we became a welfare state of people. All of a sudden, our shops and barber shops and mom and pop stores started to disappear. So who do we blame? We blame our elders. They did not instill the values to continue to fight. They wanted to hold hands with the white man. They wanted to do this. They did not continue the fight. They did not teach us to be separate, but equal. They did not pass on the tradition. It's like with me. My family history is so messed up. It's very, very unfortunate. With my family history and just whatever has been going on in my family. On both sides, father and mother side. So, but I wanted to investigate. My father always told me that his father was Native American, was Indian. He had that real slick hair. He just put water on his hair and it wave up. He had the gentleman look. My father had wavy hair. I had really curly, wavy hair. But growing up, I used to get teased because I was dark. You know how we used to tease each other. You was dark skin or too black. It was the light skin against black, thing. The Willie Lynch syndrome of light and dark, and people want to hike on you black, or they asked me if I was Haitian or some crap like that. And to find out that I was Native American, Blackfoot. And that's on my father's side. And on my mother's side, they were Seminoles or Geechee Seminoles, right? And so that's all Native American. That's basically all indigenous American. So and I had to do that investigation. Like I had to go and I tried to ask my mother, but she didn't know too much. And so I had to go to, my cousin. You always have a family member that within the family that is the record keeper. They kind of know everything about the family. They're the record keepers. Everybody have somebody in the family that you would go to find out everything about the family. Like every family have a record keeper in their family. Somebody that just is dedicated to preserving the history and the culture and the tradition of the family. So I went to my cousin because she's like the record keeper. She knows a lot of things about the family and did a lot of investigation. So I started talking to her about some things. That's on my mother's side. And I started talking to my aunt. On my father's side, now my aunt is up in her 60s now. I believe she's up in her 60s, probably close to 70. My aunt was born down, like my family on both sides came from down south. We're not from up north at all. We're from down south. My mother's mother, my grandmother, she was given away as a child. That was one of the things. She was given away. And she was working as a sharecropper as a child. And she got married to get out of the South. Like she left the South and moved up to Jersey. Met my grandfather. And their family was from Georgia, from the South. And she got with him, had my mama in 56. All right, 56, it was still segregation. Martin Luther King ain't start his dream. Malcolm X did not have his, by any means necessary. The Black Panthers did not exist. We were just dealing with Jim Crow at that time. We was dealing with segregation at that time. We was dealing with the fact that we were treated less than human beings. We was cut out of every economic organization possible in this country. You had immigrants, Italians and Germans and Jews and Polish and Scandinavian people coming over here creating. And these people were criminals that created criminal organizations, criminal mafias and unions and things of that nature to cut out the indigenous people from getting ahead of them. So that's what was going on. We was being cut out at that time, the 40s, the 30s, the 50s. This was the time of the Industrial Revolution. This is when America was the industry of the world. We was exporting everything. America was number one, because this is right after World War II, when they basically bombed everybody. So everybody was trying to get their countries together, and America was number one because nobody bombed America. Everything was in tip-top shape over here. Everybody else was trying to recover from war. So that's why America in the 60s, in the 50s and the 60s was the greatest time of this country. So, and black people was being treated terribly in this country. So it got to the point that, hey, look, we are the indigenous people. We are fighters. We are warriors. Hence the movie Black Panther, Warmonger, was a representation of the American Negro, and Black Panther was a representation of the slave African, the African who trades on his own people for the white man. And you ever notice at the end of the movie, Black Panther, with all that technology, when you watch the movie, they flew over Africa and these people were living in huts and really living a third world life. And then they go right into Wakanda and got all this beautiful technology and stuff, and you didn't do anything for Africa at all. But you take that technology and you go and you give it and share it with the United Nations, with white folks. That was the end of the movie. After they killed Killmonger, they took that knowledge and took it to the United Nations and said, we're going to start sharing our knowledge with white people. And then went to Killmonger's neighborhood where he grew up at and said, I just brought this neighborhood and we're going to put a Wakanda embassy right here. Man, if people didn't get that movie, that was just showing you that these immigrants and foreigners are taking over our little ghettos, communities or whatever. If you ain't get that and you really thought that was some black liberation with bald-head African women, then and you know whose fault? You know why we have such a ignorant mentality? We have to blame that on the elders. You have to blame that on your household. School, education means a training for. So you go to school so you can get you a certain type of job in this country. This country is a corporation, okay? So you need training. You know, when you start a job, you don't know nothing about the job. You just go and fill out the contract and say, hey, look, I want to volunteer my enslavement to your company for a small percentage of your earnings, right? They say, okay, you don't know nothing about the work there, so they have to train you or educate you on the responsibilities and orders and things of that, or whatever your responsibility will be within that company. So you're being educated, you're being trained. That's what education means. You can look it up. Education means a training for a certain task, okay? So the first thing we learn in school is to pledge allegiance to the flag, okay? So the first form of education in this country is to submit to the symbol of commerce or the symbol of trade, being the American flag, okay? Now, the second thing that we learn is about our forefathers, Washington, Lincoln, and whoever, the other two guys, right? And that's the second thing we learn, is that these guys are our leaders, these are our fathers, these are our elders, blah, 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 right? Okay, so that's the second form of education that we learn. So the form of education that we learn is to train our mind to be submissive or to voluntarily enslave ourselves to the organization of America and its founding fathers. Okay, that's the educational training that we start to receive as children in this country. And then we graduate into learning how to read and write and learning the arithmetic of this country So when we do sign a contract to these Elohims or powers or companies, corporations, organizations, when we go and say, okay, I want to neglect the covenant of God, and I want to sign a covenant with you, and I want to serve you for a certain amount of images of dead white people. That's what I want to serve you for dead white people, for my founding fathers. I want to serve the corporation for my founding fathers. You know, the ones that I've been, you got to understand the education that we received. But we didn't receive this education from our elders. We received this education from our enemies. But who sent us to school? Was it not our elders? Was it not our grandparents and parents? Who sent us to these educational facilities to be slaves? To be dumbed down to the point that we do not have common sense. We only know what we are told. We do not think for ourselves. So anyway, earlier today, I was trying to get my birth certificate, right? Guy came out talking about he's a Trump supporter. I threw the fist up, said I'm a Trump supporter because I don't vote in this country. Don't get me wrong, I don't vote. I'm not a voter. I never voted in my life. Okay? And I will never vote. But I do support what he's doing because he's trying to get these immigrants out the country, especially Mexicans. They're taking over. And all these immigrants, they need to get out of here. They're taking over. They didn't fight for nothing here. They have no reason to be here. Go home, fight for your country. If your country is that, don't run from your country. Don't leave your family. No. And send $60 or $100 home a month. No. If you want to, you know what? I even give them a chance to come over here. They should be able to come over here, work, stack up. They set up a little bank account, right? Work, stack their money for about a year, 2 or 3, because American dollar is like quadruple these other countries, the value of their money. So they can work over here for 2-3 years and take their butt back home and establish it. They need to be educated, send them to the little colleges or whatever, let them get a little piece of job, right? Let them save their money, let them get educated on how to do this, that, and the third, and then send their butts back home to rebuild and establish, some type of peace in their country. Don't leave your country and come here and then think you're just going to settle here. Like I seen a post that Foxy Brown, the rapper, supported Trump. And then Trump wound up deporting her father back to Trinidad. So, he been here for 50 years. How long you going to be here, brother? You was here for 50 years. Your daughter, who's a descendant of immigrants, came here, became a rapper at 16, right? Made millions of dollars, and y'all never said, hey, let's do something for our country that we ran from. No, you just want to come here and keep taking what the white man offer you, because he's offering you things that's not yours. He's offering you things that's ours. That's the indigenous blacks. That was ours, what we fought for, but he's giving it to you. And I'm supposed to be upset, or I'm supposed to feel bad for you when they send you back home? No, that's your home. That's where you from. That's where you need to be. I'm not from nowhere else but here. So why am I being treated terrible? Why am I being looked bad upon? Because I appreciate the fact that these people are being deported. I don't care if their children is in cages. Do you know how many of our children are locked up in juvenile detention halls and family agencies like DIFUS and things of this nature? How many of our children are being ripped away from their families and stuff? Do we shed a tear about that? Do we shed a tear about how many kids is being buried from violent crimes in our neighborhoods? But all we do is post every day about Trump having some Mexican kids in a cage. I don't understand. They have their own country. If they don't like their treatment here, then take your ass back home. Some little Puerto Rican kid in New York just got chopped up in a corner store. It was some mistaken identity. Now you have a a genetically modified ethnic person named Cardi B, who donated $1,500 to the family, right? Why do you think she donated that money to this guy? You think she did it? You know how many other people, black kids, right, has been shot for mistaken identity, shot in a crossfire for some gang violence, right? I don't see her donating to them, but she donated to this Puerto Rican. Why? Because she's Spanish. So they're going to take care of their own. That's what I hear. They're here to take care of their own. They didn't come here to integrate with the indigenous Negro American people. No, they came here to take everything that we worked for. They came over here to use the legislations that don't you know, all this stuff was created for us. We fought for this. They ain't fight for that. They ain't do nothing in their country but be slaves. Now they're going to come here and be slaves too. And they're going to give them the jobs. They're going to give them the house. They're building housing all over this country in the urban neighborhoods for them. Now, what got me talking about this is because I was speaking to some brothers in the birth certificate office. I had to get my birth certificate earlier today. Cost me $25, which I don't understand why I got to pay for a birth certificate, and I was born here. If anybody has to pay for a certificate of any type of identification, and it should be a foreigner. It shouldn't be an American citizen. I was born here. I shouldn't have to pay for a birth certificate. But I got to remember this is a corporation, so that's like when you go to work, you need an ID. And most of the time, if you lose your ID or can't find it, and they don't know that you worked there, then you have to purchase another ID out of your own pocket. So, because it's a corporation. So, it was a Trump discussion, and I was saying how black people are stupid and don't understand when a white person is trying to help them. Trump said he was going to help black people get out of their rut, help black people get on their feet, help black people start working. Well, how you expect them to do that if immigrants and foreigners are taking all the jobs? How are you going to have fair housing or a neighborhood when you have you have a Spanish section and then you have Spanish people living in your neighborhood? You have Spanish stores in Spanish section, then you have Spanish stores in your neighborhood. How do you expect to survive, to be economically sovereign if you have other people in your neighborhood taking your jobs? Don't you know that these corporations get a tax exemption for hiring immigrants? How are black people going to excel in this country when you have corporations hiring immigrants to save money, save their payout, their payroll tax and things of this nature? They save quarterly and yearly by hiring immigrants. So how are we going to survive? How is Trump going to give us jobs when these companies are hiring cheap labor over us? So in order for him to make good on his promise, on his campaign promise to black people when he was running, in order for him to make good on his promise, what do he have to do? In order for him to make room for us to receive what we are owed, he has to get all these other people out your country, you fools. But you're fighting. Oh, it's messed up. Trump putting these kids in cages. He the devil. You stupid idiots. He's trying to, if you kick, just imagine, who cuts your grass? I'm going to just use this as an example. Who's cutting the grass in America? Who's doing the landscaping in America? Is it not the Mexicans? I don't care if you live in Chicago. I don't care if you live in New York. I don't care if you live in California. I don't care if you live in Texas. I don't care if you live in Wyoming. I don't care if you live in Tennessee. I don't care if you live in New Orleans or Nevada. It's a Mexican that's cutting your grass. It's a Mexican that is doing the landscaping. I remember when black folks were cutting grass and doing landscaping. I remember this. Now, the Mexicans have monopolized the landscaping business. So, that's a business. You can go get you a truck, a couple of lawn mowers, and some hedge cutters and actually start your own business. Ain't that wonderful? It would be even better if they didn't take over and monopolize the industry of landscaping. Mexicans, they're not from this country. Go in Mexico and cut your dirt or your dust or whatever's in Mexico. But you come here and now you're cutting the grass of America. I can't even get a landscaping job. Or if I do, I'm working with some Mexicans. So if Trump send all those Mexicans, and most of these people, most of them is here illegally. They're cutting grass illegally. They're doing construction. All look at it. All the new settlements, all the new housing that's going up in the urban neighborhoods and things of this nature. Look who's building them. It's Mexicans. So the Italians are hiring Mexicans as cheap labor, cutting you out of the business. So if Trump sent all these damn Mexicans home, they will have no choice but to hire black folks. If Trump sent all these Mexicans and foreigners home, then maybe you can open up a bodega or store in your neighborhood. Maybe you can open up a Metro PCS. Maybe you can open up a liquor store. All the liquor stores are now Spanish now. I remember when liquor stores was owned by blacks and whites. Who's cleaning up the corporate buildings of America? Anywhere, any corporate building you go to, I don't care if you in New York, you in California, you in Chicago, you in Texas. The people that's mopping and sweeping and buffering the floors are Latinos. Spanish people from all over the world. From Dominican Republic, from Puerto Rico, from Mexico, from Brazil, from Colombia, from Guatemala, from wherever. And they come here and they automatically start cleaning some office building. Making $9, $10 an hour, getting all this overtime. And the whole crew is Spanish. The whole crew is Spanish. So that means that's a job that you can't get. That's a job that your children can't get. That's a company that you cannot create. But you can create a cleaning company, but nobody's going to hire you because they got all these Spanish cheap laborers that, you got 100 people working, making $5 an hour and clean up a building in 10 minutes. So that just cuts you out of your economic survival. Go to a 7-Eleven. Who work in a 7-Eleven? Is it not the Hindus? The East Indian people working all the 7-Elevens. So if you wanted to invest in the 7-Eleven franchise, you probably can't because they own it. So this is what I'm saying. All these immigrants and foreigners, everything is just coming over here. It's coming over here for the takeover. To take over a little that we have. Yeah, they got new slaves. These immigrants are the new slaves. We're not slaves. If we were slaves, we would have never fought for civil rights. We would have never fought for, we would have never had a civil war. Or fought. It was the slaves who won the Civil War. It wasn't the whites. The whites were kicking their own butts. We ran off the plantations and joined the fight and won the war. It was our fight. So, what is the mean? Why are we still in this condition? Like, I remember when I first came into the knowledge, or was coming into the knowledge of that, I felt like I was a Jew. I felt like I was a Hebrew or whatever. First, and my mother, she worked in a Jewish nursing home for almost 20 years. I worked there too as a kid. And I asked her, I just felt like, I'm like, yo, Ma, I think we the true Jews. I don't think that these white people are Jews, because I mean they rich. They got money, they doing their thing. We the poor ones, we the discriminated ones, we the ones all messed up. We the ones with hair like wool, you know? We the ones with hair like sheep or whatever. And on everything, my mother was like, yo, which I couldn't believe. I was like, that's what put me on my mission, really, because of what my mother said. She was like, no, blacks were just slaves. I'm like, what? She was like, yeah, we just, it's always the people that were slaves, and we were just the people. We are just slaves. And I just was like, I just looked at her different, like, whoa, what the hell are you talking about? I ain't no damn slave. And I ain't believe it. I said, nah, man, I don't believe that crap. So I went on my own investigation. But if I would have listened to my mother, I would believe that I'm just a slave. That's just who I am. I'm just a servant. I'm just a worker. That's my life duties, just to be a slave. If I would have listened to my mother. But that's my elder, right? That's my son, that's his grandmother, that's his elder. What if she would have told that to him? Oh, we just slaves, baby. That's all we are. That's what God created us for, so we could be slaves to white people. That's the mentality that's being trickled down to the generations now. What happened to the pride, to the independence? I mean, we had everybody loved to talk about Black Wall Street, it was Black Wall Street in every black neighborhood back in those days. You had the Harlem Renaissance. That was Black Wall Street, baby. You had Durham, North Carolina. You had many different, the south side of Chicago was a Black Wall Street. Watts. No, they had a lot of segregation over there in California. It was still very segregated in California. Even when they migrated there from the south, it was still bad in California. And it's still bad in California now. But because the Mexicans are taking over and killing the blacks. I hope people don't know that there's a race war going on in Chicago and Mexico and California and in between. But the Mexicans killing blacks. But you mad because Trump putting their children in cages. These people are very vicious. Look at what's going on in their countries. The murder, the violence. They sick. These people are vicious animals, man. And you want them to come here? We have to blame this, our ignorance is the cause because of our elders, our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents that did not teach us the proper knowledge to survive. It was the elders of Israel that was told to give the knowledge to the children of Israel. It was the elders of Israel who disrespected the Torah. It was the elders of Israel that turned away from the culture of God. It was the elders. It was told to Moses in Exodus chapter 3, verse 16, to go to the elders. It was told to Joshua in the book of Joshua, chapter 24, verse 1, to go to the elders of Israel. So it's your elders who are to blame for our condition. According to the Torah, it states, I love those who love me and hate those who hate me, punishing them to the third and fourth generation. So hate is when you turn yourself away from the culture, from the tradition of the Torah, of loving ourselves, respecting ourselves, looking out for one another, being a family, a nation, but that's all nation is. A nation is a collection of families, man. That's all. We all family. And our elders, if you ever notice, elder has the word El in it. El. Israel. Elohim. Elah. Allahi. It's El. Right? You hear the L in it? So the L is the ancient one. Right? So our elders are those who came before us. El in Hebrew means mighty or mighty ones. So our elders are the mighty ones of our family. They hold the power. Okay? They are the mighty ones of the family. So if the elders, the L's, have disrespected and neglected to continue in the tradition that keep us sovereign and independent and not having to be slaves, if they abandon that, then it's our elders. It's our elders that allowed the white man to tell us that we from Africa. It's our elders that allowed us to be doing drugs and things. It's our elders that allow us to pledge allegiance to the flag. It's our elders. If you don't teach your child correctly, properly, whose fault is that? Is it the child's fault? Or if you don't teach the child nothing, you let them figure things out on their own. And you send them to the enemy's educational system. And you wonder why they have no passion for their own people. Because they've been pledging allegiance to the forefathers of the four conquerors, Washington, Lincoln, all of these people, right? We've been pledging allegiance and learning about them. But our elders sent us to these educational facilities. But the Torah tells us we're not supposed to send our children to school. You want to be educated in the enemy's house? And there's nothing wrong with that if you're going to use that knowledge to sustain our own survival. If we're going to reverse the status quo, we're going to get their education to in turn defeat them with their own knowledge that they taught us. If we're not going to do that, then what I mean, you're just basically sending your kid to school to be a slave. That's what you're doing. This is what our elders is doing. They're not teaching the children. They're not, like I was saying about when I was going into my family history and I was asking my aunt, my aunt was born down south. Like my father and uncles, they was born up here. But she was born down south because she's the oldest. Rest in peace to all my uncles. They're all dead. Even my father died. She's like the last one left. And she was the oldest. She's the oldest out of all of them, and all the men are dead. But that's part of the Torah. That's part of the curse, that the women should watch their men die off. Their brothers and sons and husbands and fathers should die off in front of them. That's the curse of the black woman, of the Negro, of the Hebrew Israelite woman. The curse of the Israelite woman is to watch her men die in her face, be massacred in her face, and she can do nothing about it. But it's our elders' fault. It's your parents' fault why you don't know that you're a Hebrew Israelite. It's your parents' fault why you believe in Jesus. It's your parents' fault why you follow the ways of Muhammad. It's your parents' fault why you go and vote. It's your grandparents' fault. Why are you voting for the enemy? You're not voting for yourself. It's our elders that became Democrats when they was Republicans. It's our elders' fault why we are a welfare state of people. It's our elders' fault why we out here killing each other. It's our elders' fault why the families are all broke up. It's your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents' faults. It's their fault. We have to blame our elders. We need to put our elders accountable for what they have done to us. We can't blame the white man for this. We can't blame Trump for this. We have to blame our elders. We have to blame our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grand. We got to blame all the way back to our elders. Matter of fact, this is written in the Torah. But before I go there, let's talk about the responsibility of us as parents and soon to be grandparents and soon to be we are parents today, but we will be elders tomorrow. We are the new elders. What are we going to teach? We are supposed to teach our children. That's how you create a tradition and a culture within the nation. It's supposed to be a continual teaching through the generations, man. That's how you keep it going. But if you're not teaching, like, we believe we from Africa, that is our elders' fault why we believe we're from Africa. That's our elders' fault why you think you're from Africa. Seriously. Because those that are from Africa, even if they was born here, even if their parents was African, came from Ghana, Liberia, Nigeria, wherever, and they came over here and they birthed a baby here, trust me, those children will know about their homeland. They will know what country. They will have pride in Africa, even though they never been to Africa. Even though they not from Africa. They're from this country. All they know is America. Their mother, their father knows about Africa because that's where they're from. But their children don't know nothing about Africa. But they have African pride, right? They some of them even speak as if they just can't. Where you from, Africa? You can't. They like, no, I was born here. So what's the problem? Why you can't speak English correctly? Why is this still a struggle? I can hardly understand what you're saying. It sounds like you just can't got off the boat from Africa. Because in their household, they still keep their culture as if they're in Africa. They still stink as if they're in Africa. Like, they will not put on deodorant for the first 10 years of living in America because they really try to still keep their culture. They don't use deodorant in Africa. They say that's for white people. But black people, it was the Negro Americans that invented soap and deodorant because it was the indigenous people who invented smell good products, you know. When white people invaded this country, they stink like dogs and pigs. It was the Native Americans that gave them a bath and bathed them and gave them oils and stuff so they can smell decent, you know. Because the natural smell of a white person is disgusting. No disrespect, I'm just the truth. But anyway, it's our elders' fault. Why are we so dumb today? We have to blame our elders. It's their fault. They didn't teach us correctly. They gave us up to the enemy, man. Your elders turned their face away from you. Remember El is your ancestor. He's the God of old, you know. El is your ancestors. This is why it's told to Moses, it was said to Moses, I am the God, I am the El of your ancestors. I am your elder, man. People don't understand this Torah, man. They too spiritual and don't understand the truth of this Torah. It's all about your elders, your ancestors. All about your ancestors. He said, I am El of your fathers. I am the elder of your fathers. So when you talk about El, you are talking about your elders. The God from old. The God of many generations. The elders of many generations. My mother is 60-something years old. She goes back, her birth was 1956. She birthed me. She's here to see my son born. She is the El of generations. She is the elder of generations. Do you not get it, people? You want to walk around talking about some bloodline and you a true Jew and all this stupid stuff. Understand the Torah for what it's talking about. El is your elder. The only reason, this is why in Shemot or Exodus chapter 3, he says, this is my name and this is my remembrance unto all the generations. It's a remembrance. You are supposed to remember. It says, remember your elders. Call on your elders. Your grandmama, your grandfather, your great-grandmother, your great-grandfather. Call on your elders and they shall show you. Your elders are to tell you of God. So El is not a Canaanite deity. El is not or whatever deity you want to say. El, it means elders. Look it up for yourself. You have to remember that English is a Canaanite language, man. English comes from Latin, Latin comes from Greek, Greek comes from the Phoenician alphabet. The Phoenicians were Canaanites. So now you know who white people is. They're the Canaanites. But you let your elders tell you that they Esau. And elders just mean, in Hebrew, elder is Seb. Seb. Shin Yod Bet. Seb. And really, that's what you get, sibling. 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 S-I-B. S-I-B means elder in Hebrew. Seb. So that's where you get sibling. So your siblings are those descendants who came from your elders. It's all about family, baby. It's all about your peoples. But we don't care about our peoples because we worried about Trump putting Mexicans in cages. Who cares? They're not my siblings. They didn't come from my elders. They're not a part of my family. I can care less about their condition. They come to my country to take over. We got to get back to our soul for real. And we got to get back to us. Our elders has disappointed us. They have failed us, man. You start talking, to a person, and how they say old people stuck in their ways. You start talking about certain things that, certain knowledge that was not available to us 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. The knowledge that we are getting today was not available to our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. So some knowledge that we can get today we can go to them and say, hey, look, this, that, and the third, but they so stuck in their ignorance. And they perpetuate that ignorance on their children and grandchildren. That's the generational curse right there. The curse of ignorance through the generation. Said, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge because they reject knowledge. In turn, I will reject thee, and thou should be no priest to me, seeing that they have forgotten the ways of my law. I will forget your children. So when the elders have forgotten the ways of their law, the ways of our culture, when they have forgotten it, when they have abandoned it for another culture or another way, their children will be forgotten. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. Those who lead you cause you to err and destroy the ways of your path. According to the Shema, the parents, the elders, are supposed to teach the children exactly what they are supposed to know. That's the new covenant. Is that from the oldest to the youngest, all people should know the culture of God, and no more shall a man say know the Lord and know the Lord, because all people will know. Because the elders will teach the children. That's why we would know. It will be a generational teaching. That's how we would know. That's why it would be instilled in our heart, because it would be taught to us, just like it was taught to us to pledge allegiance to the flag, just like it was taught to us that we was from Africa, just like it was taught to us that we were slaves, just like it was taught to us to believe in Jesus, just like it was taught to us that all this stupid stuff that we have embedded in our hearts, that we believe without proof, without evidence, then that the Torah will be taught to us, the culture will be taught to us. Now, according to the Shema, and this is deRs, or Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commands that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Verse 7, this is the elders' job that they failed to do. Verse 7, impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home. So where does the education start according to the Torah? The education starts at home. But you're sending your children to school to learn that training to be a slave, to be ignorant of their own culture, of their own tradition, to abandon their own way for the ways of some other people, and you wonder why we are in the condition that we are in. It's because your parents, your grandparents, your elders, your parents was taught by their parents, that was taught by their parents, that was taught by their parents. It's a generational curse of ignorance. We have to blame our elders. We need to bring Jesse Jackson, all these old-ass fools, we need to bring them into account for what they done to us. I'm living in this curse because of you, y'all old asses. They are the problem. It's the elders. This is why in the wilderness, God killed off all the elders, because of what they done to us. There was the elders that was scared to go up into Canaan. There was the elders that felt like grasshoppers against those giant Canaanites and decided not to go into Canaan. And they brought God to anger. And he said, this generation of people will die out. And their children that they were so worried about was going to die, their children will enter the land of milk and honey. But these people will not. It was the elders who caused us to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. It was their fault. We had to wait till they die off. And we need to wait until these fools, our elders today, they need to die off because they have not taught us how to survive. They have not taught us the truth. They have let these white people, this corporation of America, educate us into an ignorant abyss. It's your parents and grandparents that allowed this to happen to us. I'm sorry I'm getting emotional, but it's the truth. Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verse 7. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road and when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hand and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and your gates. When the Lord your God brings you into the land he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, to give you a land with large flourishing cities you did not build, houses filled with all kind of good things that you did not provide, wells you did not dig, and vineyards and olive groves you did not plant. Then when you eat and are satisfied, be careful that you do not forget the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land, or out of earth, out of an earth. We got to stop saying land because a wretch means earth. It can be interpreted as land, or it can be interpreted or translated as earth. We are in a slave earth, okay? Because he surely did not bring Egypt into America. It's a metaphor. It's a situation of slavery. Okay? He brought slavery here in ships. White people came here in ships, and what did they bring with them? Slavery. Okay? And it was our elders that let these pilgrims, let these conquistadors, let these conquerors, these invaders, we allowed them to come in our country. We let them in with open arms. Matter of fact, we even bathed them. We even healed these people, taught them how to plant. That's the whole meaning of Thanksgiving. Oh, you don't think these white people were slaves when they came here? So why are you about to light some firecrackers on July 4th? What is July 4th? It's Independence Day. Whose independence? It was white people who fought their slave masters who were white, who was the British, right? The British was the slave master, right? They fought the slave master for him out this country. The British went back to Britain, or they went up to Canada, into British Canada, right? And these white people who were slaves now became the masters. And they turned around and enslaved the indigenous people. That's what happened. So when you celebrate your little Independence Day and you blowing your little fireworks and stuff, understand that these white people that are controlling you are actually slaves. That's why God in the Torah, it says that he will send a people who's no people. And it will bring us to jealousy. And we will be in a one of all things, you know? Okay. You get it? Do you get it? Do you get it? Or did you listen to your grandmother and say, pull your pants up and act right in school? Be a good slave and get that education. It's your elders that cause us to fail. We must blame our elders. These people, our elders, we cannot deal with them anymore. They need to die out because they have not helped us at all. Those L's, the L's that we are under, which is our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, those L's have turned us a bad way. They have not taught us the proper way to be self-sufficient. They haven't. And this is why we are in this situation. Like my stepmother, my father's wife, she was telling me about the little Spanish kid that got stabbed up in New York or whatever. And hold on. So I was like, so, and like she really, like, her face got turned up because I was like, so. And she was like, but, you know, that's not right. He's human. I was like, who say he's human? I was like, I never heard the Spanish Latino community uprise when a black man is choked out by police or shot by police or a black kid kill another black kid. I don't never see them uprise for us. But we always concerned about them. I said they shouldn't be in this country. Point blank. He came here and his people own a store and they make, excuse me, they're making all this money off black folks. And what you think? You want to move into a black neighborhood, black neighborhood or whatever, and you want to open up a business and you want to get, you want to basically rob the people, okay? You want to, you want to rob the people, and then you don't expect to be a victim of the violence. Why? Because black people only kill black people? So as long as black people only kill black people, nobody cares. But when another race of person, they got Mexican kids in cages, and all of a sudden black people are so distraught at what Trump is, send their asses back to Mexico. Maybe my son can get a landscaping job. Maybe he could clean an office building and don't have to speak Spanish to get the damn job. You understand what I'm saying? Trump is helping black people. He made a promise that he would, if we support him, that he was going to look out for us and get us back to work, make America great again. America was great when it was black and white. Remember that. America was at its greatest when it was just black and white, baby. Yeah, we had problems with white folks. White folks had problems with black folks. But I'll take that any day over having problems with not just white folks, but now I got to have a problem with Mexicans. I got a problem with Puerto Ricans. I got a problem with Dominicans. I got a problem with Nigerians. I got a problem with people from Ghana. I got a problem with Africans. I got a problem with Indians. I got a problem with Brazilians. I got a problem with Colombians. I got a problem with Trinidadians. I got a problem with Jamaicans. I got a problem with St. Paulians. I got a problem with all these. That's just too many people, man. God damn. And all of them coming here. They ain't fixing their own countries. They coming here. And because he is trying to keep his promise to black people who helped get him in there. Nah, I'm lying. It was the college electoral votes that got him in there. But anyway. How is Trump going to give us a job when these corporations get tax exemptions for hiring foreigners and immigrants and asylum seekers and all this crap? How are we going to get a job when they save money hiring them? If you have your own business and you need people, you need workers, you need slaves, you need servants, you need employees, you need them. So if I can actually say, now you have to pay them, and thanks to Obama and his immigrant ass, right? He set up Obamacare. So now, these companies have to pay for your health care now. Full. If you're working for them full time, then they have to pay your full benefits. This is why companies and corporations are not even handing out full time no more. Because they have to pay your benefits, and they're not trying to do all that. So they're giving out full-time hours, but you under the part-time status, like you're part-time. So, but anyway, these companies, they get these immigrants, they get tax exemptions and stuff for hiring them. So that means when you, being a natural-born, indigenous Negro American, come to fill out the application, they're going to lose money hiring you. They losing money hiring you. But they actually saving money and gaining money because they can overwork the immigrant and pay them less. We know our rights. I'm supposed to get an hour break. I'm supposed to get 2 15-minute breaks and an hour lunch. I'm supposed to get a vacation. I'm supposed to get paid holidays. You know your rights. They don't want to deal with that. They want everybody to be freaking slaves. Indigenous Negro Americans, we have never been slaves voluntarily. Never. We fought day in, day out, and we still fighting. But our elders is the reason why we're in this situation. I want to read Hosea 4 and 6. To understand that our elves, the powers that are over our families, because a nation, when we talk about the nation of Israel, a nation is nothing but a collection of families. Remember that. A nation is nothing but a collection of families. This country is not a nation. It's what you would call it's a mixed nation of people. It's Babylon. Babylon was known for it being a mixed nation of people that babble, different languages, different cultures, different traditions, different gods, different elves, different elders. That's what an L is. An L is your elder. Okay, you have to understand that when you read the Torah. That's why when the Creator came to Moses, he said, I am the El of your fathers. I am the El. You ever see El? You see El and elders, right? El means powers, mighty. So who has the power over the nation, over the families? Is it not the elders? Was not it told to Moses to go to the elders, and tell them such and such, such and such? Was it not told to Joshua to summon the elders of Israel and tell the elders to administer such and such and such and such, right? So it's the elders' job to preserve the tradition and the culture in whatever nation that they are belonging to or they are ruling over. Okay? So if we are like I said, why did Israel wander 40 years in the wilderness? Because of the elders' fear of going into the land of Canaan. So now they caused us to wander for 3 to 4 generations, damn near. 40 years, that's about 2-3 generations. It's the elders. It's the elders' fault. Our situation is because of our elders. You don't believe me? Before I close out, I'm going to go into the Torah and prove that it's the elders' fault. It's the elders' fault why you believe that you're from Africa. It's the elders' fault why you believe in Jesus. It's the elders' fault why you don't have your own business. It's the elders' fault why our young women are being prostitutes and whoring themselves out for $1. It's our elders' fault why our young men are in prison, impoverished, and killing each other. It's our elders' fault why our children are oppressing our neighborhoods. It's our elders' fault why we are not a sovereign people. It's our elders' fault It's their fault. In the Shema, the elders are supposed to teach the children. Somewhere, they messed up. The elders has turned their back and turned their faces and turned their heads against the younger generation. They have turned their face away from us. They're not hearing our cries. They look at our rap music and stuff and call it whatever. These are our elders, man. You people, this is why God killed all of them in the wilderness. This is why they wandered 40 years in the wilderness, to kill off those elders. The same elders that we have today that need to die. They need to die off because they ain't no good for us. No good. I'm sorry to say it like that, but it's the truth. It's the absolute truth. They ain't no good for us. They haven't taught us the truth. Like, I had to ask my aunt. I was in search of my family history, right? Because once my father passed away, he passed away about 2 years ago. And I remember I was talking to him, about being an Israelite and I used to talk to him all the time because he was like, my mother didn't want to hear it. Like, once I told my mother I ain't believe in Jesus, she kind of cut me off. She was like, I wasn't even her son no more for a few years. You understand what I'm saying? My father, on the other hand, he didn't care about no Jesus. He believed in God. He all that Jesus crap, he didn't care about no Jesus crap. He believed in God and that was it. So me not believing in Jesus ain't make him no never mind. I believed in God, he believed in God, he was good with that. My mother, on the other hand, was a Jesus freak. She still is. She I don't believe in no man. Because the Torah says that. No man. I don't put no man over me, over my life, as for me to follow that. I don't need to be a follower. I don't need that. That's not our purpose in life, is to be followers. And that's the problem. We all follow, man. People want to follow Muhammad. People want to follow Jesus. People want to follow Buddha. People want to follow. Everybody want to be followers. Nobody want to lead their own life. Whose fault is that? It's our elders' fault. They didn't teach us to be independent. They taught us to be followers. They taught us to pay attention and to listen to the teacher and be good to the government. That's what they taught us. It's the bull crap. But anyway, so I went to my aunt. She was the elder of the family, the oldest out of all her brothers, including my father and my uncles and stuff. She was the oldest. Well, one of the oldest. But anyway, everybody died. Everybody dead. She's like the last one left, And so once my father passed away, I didn't know much of my family too much. And all the elders were dying. All my uncles are dead. All of them gone. I just had my aunt. My other aunt that lives in Philly, I don't really know her like that. So I couldn't kick it with her. So I only knew my one aunt that was here with us, So, once my father passed, and I knew that we were Native Americans, So, I had asked, I wanted a little more detail about what tribe or whatever. So my aunt, she was born down south, Pitt County, North Carolina. My grandmother were Blackfoot Indians or whatever. And I said, wow, so, now I know what tribe, Blackfoot. Okay, most of us are Blackfoot, Cherokee, stuff like that. That was a big tribe. We all family anyway. But anyway, So I'm like, okay, wow. So I remember one time I was talking with my father about the Torah and everything, being Hebrew and stuff like that. And he came out one day and was like, his mother. I never met my grandmother. I never met none of my grandparents. Unfortunately, they died before I was born. But he was telling me that his mother was saying to his sister, which was my aunt, the oldest, the one I was questioning about the family history and stuff, and that she told her that we were God's people, or we were the people of the Bible. And this is what my father had told me, because I was drilling him, about all this Hebrew Israelite, and we come from Jacob and Isaac and Abraham. So my father was like, he was checking it out. He was digging it, He was listening, and he would take it back, to his sister or whatever, and whatever. And when he said that, I was like, see, Pop, look, even Grandma knew, So, when he passed away, peace be upon him, when he passed away, I said, look, my aunt is the last one left, Like, if she go, it's over. It ain't no, I would never know because she go way back. You know what I'm saying? So it's things that I can only get from an elder. Like, I can't get that information out no textbook that some white man wrote. I just can't I have to get it from word of mouth. I have to get it orally. I have to get the story from the experience of my elder, So when I went to her and start, I was saying, I was like, my father was saying that, Grandma, your mother or whatever was telling you that we God's people. And she was like, yeah, my mother was telling me, that, we the people of the Bible, we God's people. I'm like, and why wasn't that told to the family? Why wasn't that just the slogan of why wasn't that passed down? Okay, my grandfather, we're Native Americans. Why wasn't that passed down? Why you got most of the family thinking they African Americans or whatever? Why wasn't this knowledge and history passed down? Like, I don't understand. I'm like, why do I have to call you 30 some odd, 20 some odd years later, once my, or a year later after my father passed away to find out some family history? Like, you the elder. Why aren't you teaching this to the children? You got grandchildren. You having great grandchildren, and you're going to allow them to stay in their ignorance? You're not going to tell your children that, look, we are Native Americans. We're from this country. This is our country. This, that, and the third. You're not going to teach that your mother told you that you were God's people, that black people are God. You're not going to pass that down. You're not going to pass that knowledge. You're just going to let all that knowledge die with you, huh? That's what you're going to do? So I try to get as much information as she can remember. And I pressed her, Because a lot of times, I talk to her. She ain't really want to talk about it. She act like she can't remember. It was so long ago. Maybe such and such might know. I'm like, look, just give me whatever information you got. And it was pissing me off. Because it's like, why didn't I know this as a kid? Remember, I was saying when I was growing up, I'm a dark-skinned brother, you know what I'm saying? And, I used to have, when I used to go to the barbershop used to always say I had a nice grade of hair. I never knew what the hell that meant. I guess, you got good hair or whatever, how black people call it. But really when they say you got good hair, you got Indian hair. So, because my hair was like Indian hair or whatever, curly. So I was like, okay, whatever. But I never really liked my head or my hair or whatever. So I used to always wear hats and stuff and skellies and stuff. And like, I was dark skinned. So, back in the day, as kids is cruel. So, and I used to hang with a lot of my friends were light skinned, stuff like that. I'm brown skinned. I'm not even like black. I'm brown skinned. I got family members that are black. I'm talking about country black, And that's like on my mother's side, really. But, people would be like, oh, you Jamaican? Because I had a big forehead. Found out that on my mother's side, my grandmother, who was Creole, which is mixed with white Native American, she had married a Jamaican man, which is my great grandfather. So there you go. That's where the forehead come from. So anyway, and this is all from asking questions. This is something I should already know. I shouldn't have to be, in my 30s with a child. I got my own son, and I got to teach him about his family history so he can have an identity. Because when I was growing up, people used to be like, "What, you Haitian? You Jamaican? When and it was like, when they said, asked me, you Haitian, I used to get upset, like, I ain't freaking Haitian, like, and it wasn't a lot of Haitians out here back then, so, you was called Haitian or African, that was disrespectful, So, but if my family, my elders, right, if they would have taught me and us that we were Native Americans, that we was from here, and this, that, and this is the tribe we belong to, then when somebody would have asked me, who am I, what am I, or call me something else, I could have corrected them as a child. I could have had pride. This is why these immigrants, even though they run from their countries and they ain't trying to go back, nor are they trying to fix their countries, they're just trying to take over what we created here to benefit ourselves, but they have pride because at least they have an oral history, even if their history is really some genetically modified, racial infused culture, which they really don't have a culture. They really don't have a culture. All they have is a piece of land that they was enslaved on and a flag of that land. That's all they got in a language. They have no culture. The only people that had a culture were people, the indigenous Negroes of this country. We have culture. They don't have no, and people in Africa, they got culture. Everybody in between ain't got no culture. I mean, you have Indians, everybody have a culture, but I'm talking about the genetically modified people. And other people, because, most other people have a tribalistic culture, They not, our culture is illuminated. We have light. We have knowledge. We're innovative, meaning like we created the light bulb. We created the traffic light. We created so many modern tools that we use today in our, the things that black folks created in this country is why all these immigrants that's coming from there, excuse my language, but I'm just quoting President Trump, their shithole countries, they coming over here to partake in the luxuries of what we invented. They didn't invent it in their countries, nor do they have it in their countries. You had the rapper Akon, who's an African descent of immigrants, go back to Africa and give them lights in certain countries in Africa. How can that be the cradle of civilization, the beginning of everything, and they don't even have lights and running water in their country? I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. If Africa was the spot to be, if that's the motherland, then why did the white people come over here and invade my country? Why didn't they colonize Africa? Why did they come colonize America first? You understand what I'm saying? So, but this is the ignorance that we have because of the neglect of teaching from our elders. We have to blame our elders for our condition. Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest unto me, seeing that thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, or the law of thy elders, seeing that y'all have forgotten the law of your elders. I will also forget thy children. That's the problem. That is the problem. This is why the elders of Israel in the time of Moses had to die off in the wilderness. They could, if the our elders, remember you got our elders like Jesse Jackson, who coined the phrase African American. We ain't from no goddamn Africa. You got Africans that's coming from Africa in this country that's doing better than the indigenous people of this country, and you still gonna call yourself African. I ain't seen an African try to make an alignment with an African American yet. Even though some African countries have adopted our flag, we don't even support our own flag, which you had the Caribbean people, Marcus Garvey, our chief rabbi, Rabbi Wentworth Matthews of the Black Hebrew Israelite. All these people were Caribbeans. When the Caribbeans came to this country in the early 20s and 1910, 1920s, and when they came here and they witnessed the indigenous Negro Americans, they knew that we were God's people. They knew it. And they committed themselves to serving God's people. So Marcus Garvey created the diaspora flag, the Negro American flag, the red, black, and green. You ever notice in this country that every flag is supported except that flag? You ever notice that? You have Nigerians, the Igbo Nigerians have adopted our flag colors, but have no respect for us. The Libyans in Libya has adopted the red, black, and gray. And other countries have adopted that flag because we didn't uplift our banner. Marcus Garvey created that flag because there was a slogan going around that every people who have a flag except the Negro. So he created a flag of identity. Do we support it? Do we uplift it? No. Everybody else flag, Puerto Rican flag, everybody else flag, Trinidadian flag, Jamaican flag, everybody else flag is flown high, and they respect their flag. They put it all in their cars. But I got the red, black, and green flag in my car. I don't know what y'all talking about. I put a menorah in the middle of that joint. You had our chief rabbi, Rabbi Wentworth Matthews, who created the Black Hebrew Israelite organization, theology, and everything. He was a Caribbean. But he came over here and know that we were God's people, and he believed that we were the people of God, and he committed himself to serving us and creating an organization that we can center ourselves around. We had another guy, I believe he was Black American, but I'm not really sure, but he created Kwanzaa, so we can separate ourselves from the white Santa Claus of Christmas. But we don't even celebrate that. So it's our elders' fault. I wasn't alive. I wasn't born when Marcus Garvey created his flag. I wasn't born when our chief rabbi, Wentworth Matthews, created the Commandment Keepers in Harlem, New York. Was I alive? Probably a few years prior to my birth. But I was not alive when they created Kwanzaa and used the menorah as and each day was a symbol of some type of unity and respect for your people. I wasn't born when that was created. I wasn't born when the Black Panthers was established to create a political organization that aim is to create a sovereignty of the black nation of people in this country. I wasn't born when that occurred. I wasn't born when Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Medgar Evers and Huey and Bobby Seale and Fred Hampton, Asada Shakur, Afeni Shakur, and all these other great leaders stood up for people who were being beat down. I wasn't born, but you know who was here? My mama, my grandmama, my grandfather, my great. They were here. So why do I believe I'm from Africa and all this Kuta Kinte fake roots crap? You have to blame your elders. It's our elders' fault. I'm telling you, when you see these old know that our condition, the kids are shooting up the neighborhood, the kids are walking around, you got boys wanting to be girls, girls wanting to be boys, people confused about their gender, and it's okay. You got young women out here having babies and being prostitutes, but it's okay. You got young men joining gangs and shooting up the neighborhood, and it's okay. Why? Because the elders ain't saying nothing anymore. Ain't no more big mamas in the house. Ain't no more grandpa, great grandpa, pop. So the problem is our elders, meaning the mighty ones over our nation. Because that's who God is. God is our elders. When he came to Moses, he says, I am the El of your fathers. I am the elder of your fathers. Israelers. How do you know about God if it wasn't for your parents and your grandparents teaching you about God? So it's your elders who are God and who teach you about God. This should be my remembrance, and this should be my memorial for all generations. God is supposed to be memorialized and remembered, and that can only be in effect if it is orally traditioned as a story and passed down through the generations. It's the elders' job to pass the traditions and the cultures and the stories down. It's the elders' job. And it's the elders' job to teach the children to pass that down when they become the elders. So it's the elders' fault. We have to blame our elders for our condition. We have to blame our elders for this invasion in our country. We have to blame our elders for our curse. We have to blame our elders for allowing a white man to rule over us. It's our elders' fault. It's their fault. And the Torah says it's their fault. It says it. And we have to acknowledge that it's their fault. We're trying to blame the devil, we're trying to blame Satan, we're trying to blame Esau, we're trying to blame white man, Canaan, we're trying to blame God, we're trying to blame ourselves, we're trying to blame everybody but who's at fault. And the people who are at fault are our elders. That's who's at fault. That's who we need to blame. It's them. They're the reason of our condition. I'm serious. It's your elders. It's our elders' fault. This is why this is why the Israelites had to wander 40 years in the wilderness until all those elders died off, because they were no good. They was not going to prosper the people. When Joshua and them came back with the report from the land of Canaan, from the land of milk and honey, and that one guy gave that bad report. Oh, the land is beautiful. It's just, the people make us look like grasshoppers. And then all the elders got scared and said, oh, the God bring us out here for our children to die. So what did God do? What do Hashem do? What did the Most High do? And you say, oh, so these people ain't got no heart, no faith, huh? Okay. Well, you know what? This generation is gonna die off. And none of them get. I'm gonna let Joshua and them come in. Them being the elders, they can enter the land, but everybody else gonna die off. Y'all gonna wander around 40 years in the wilderness till these scary ass people die off, and then the children is gonna enter the land. We're gonna re-educate the children, not to be as scary as these damn elders. So we are in that situation once again when we have scary, negligent, ignorant elders that has not taught the generations after them anything at all. They sit back in their old ways and just complain about the youth. It's their job to teach us, man. What the hell is wrong with these people? They need to die off. They terrible. They're the reason why we're in this condition. Now it says, now in Exodus chapter 3, verse 6, it says, then he said, I am the God of your fathers. Now I want to go into the Yiddish. I try not to say Hebrew too much because it's not Hebrew. Hebrew is not a language. It's not a people. It's not none of that. But you let white folks have you believe in that because they wanted to create a system of hierarchy and supremacy. But if you truly understand the Torah, then you would understand what a Hebrew or the Israelite is, and it don't have nothing to do with ethnicity or none of that. Okay, but it says this is what it says here. I'm gonna try to read it in Hebrew or Yiddish. It says, Wemar Anaki Allahi Abik Allahi Abraham Allahi Yishak Wallahi Yaakov. Let you know that God's name is Allahi. All right. A lot of people don't realize that. They want to, oh, you said Allah, you Muslim. I can't mess with you. But it says it right here in Exodus 3 and 6, Exodus 3 and 15, Jeremiah 10. It's people should come to you whose language you don't understand. So because you don't understand the language, this is why you dismiss your brethren, when they're trying to tell you some knowledge, or show you some knowledge. You dismiss them because you are in a language that you don't understand, but you think you understand it. But anyway, it says, moreover, he said, and they said, because the yod in front of Amar, the yod can mean he or they. Just like in Israel, the yod means he prevail or they will prevail, like that. So the yod is a prefix that gives a certain definition to the meaning of the word or the phrase or the term they're trying to convey to the reader. So the Weimar is, and he said, Anaki, I am Allahi. So I am Allahi. And he said, Anaki Allahi. I am Allahi. Remember that. Okay? I am Allahi of your fathers. So what's God's name? Allahi. That's one name. Allahi. What did he tell Moses? And he said, this is Exodus chapter 3, or Shemot chapter 3, verse 6. And he said, Anaki, which is Aleph, Nun, Kuf, Yod. Aleph, Anky, Anaki. I am Allahi. Now they translate it as the God of your fathers. Okay? But he says, my name is, he says, I am Allahi. But what we see El in Allahi, right? We see El. He says, I am Elahi of your fathers. I am the elder. Okay? Of your fathers. Isaac, Abraham, Isaac, and Moses. Okay? So he's telling you that he is El. He is the elder. He is the one from old, for many generations. Okay? So God is your elders. He is your elders. So in Exodus 3 and 6, he says, then he said, I am the God of your fathers. I am the Elah, or I am the El of your fathers. I am the elder. So who is to blame? Now where in the Torah does it says that the elders are to blame? That's Leviticus 26. Leviticus 26 will tell you exactly who's to blame. It's not the white man. It's not none of that. It's your elders. It's the people that were supposed to teach the generations ahead of them. That was their responsibility, man. And they failed. They failed us all. All these old people, all these old folks you want to respect and give pride and power to. Bill Cosby, Dick Gregory, Farrakhan, all these they failed us. They failed us. Look at our situation. You think they failed us. They need to die out. Why are they still in power? Why are they still running their mouths? Why are we even listening to these people? If you want to lock up Morgan Freeman, I don't care. What have they done? Dick Gregory died, so what? Our elders have failed us. Point blank. Our elders have failed us. Just like the elders failed Israel at the border of Canaan. Because they was in fear. They was in fear to fight the enemy. Just like our elders are in fear today. Instead of directing the youth to fight back, as they fought to get legislation passed to vote and to sit in a restaurant next to a white person and to ride the front of the bus and all this stuff. Just like they fought for that, but they did not. Once they got theirs, okay, we good. They didn't care about the future. Or when the youth was rising up, when he had the Black Panthers, and that was the youth, that was the next generation continuing the fight of their elders. Their elders did not support the youth, nor did they teach the youth, nor did they administer the traditions and the oral laws or nothing. Our elders failed us. It's their fault. The fathers have eaten on sour grapes and the children's teeth are on edge. It's our ancestors' fault. Why are we so dumb today? Why are we cursed today? Why we're plagued today? It's our elders' fault. We have to blame. We need to hold these old ass people accountable. And we need to push them out of our circle. We don't need the elders. They have failed us. Nothing that come out their mouth is important, legitimate, or even to take in consideration. They have failed us. We must abandon our elders. They have failed us. They have not taught us the knowledge. They have not kept the traditions. They have not kept the family stories or nothing. We got to learn who we are from a white man out of his textbook. We got to find out who we are, not from our grandparents and our elders. We got to resort to a book. We're debating over a book. When we got grandparents and great-grandparents and great aunts and uncles and elders that was here 60 years ago, 70 years ago, 90 years ago. Why the hell am I reading a book when I got the story right here in live in color, in the flesh? Because our elders has failed us. That's why. So now we got to go to the enemy's literature to find out who we are. And they're going to continue to lie to us because they don't want us to be empowered by the education or information that we receive. So this is why we are in the situation we are today. And we must stop giving respect to our elders because they have failed us. If they succeeded in what they were supposed to do, their God-given job is to preserve the culture and traditions and pass this down to the generations. They have failed at their job. They failed miserably. And now we are suffering because of them. I was born into this situation. I was born into this situation. I didn't make this situation. I didn't cause this situation. I was born in this situation. I was born in 81. I was born into this situation. My mother was born in 56. She was born into this situation. Her mother was born probably 1910, something like that. 1920, between the 1918 somethings and the 1920s, she was born. She was born into this situation. Her mama was born. So who's responsible? At some point, somebody from then should have did something. Now it's a generational curse. It's a generational curse. And this is what the Torah says about our wasted, worthless elders. And I want you to remember that El is in elders. Okay? So who are the God of our fathers? It's our elders. The elders of our fathers, the Els. The only way you know about God is you are taught about God from your elders. So who is God? God is your elders. So if the elders are going wrong, then the children will go wrong. Then the nation will go totally wrong. You see how that works? You see the trickle-down effect? But we want to debate over the Torah and not truly understand it. And that's, once again, we are being taught by our elders, and we're being taught wrong. Once again, we need to abandon these elders, all of them. I don't care if they're in the truth, not in the truth. Your grandmama, ain't nothing to talk about. We ain't got nothing to talk about. Why do I have to ask you, why do I have to inquire about my family history? That's something that should that should just be told. That should, just like the Shema says. You teach your children when you walk by the way, when you sit at the table, when you wake up, when you lay down. It's a constant household teaching. I shouldn't go to school, and our children shouldn't be pledging allegiance to no flag. They should already know not to do that. They should already know that Washington and Lincoln is not their forefathers. They should already know that they're not from Africa. They should already know that this is their land. We should already know that we God's people, because we should have been taught this by our elders. in our families. A nation is nothing but a collection of families, and the L of that nation are the elders. Those L means powers or mighty. The elders are the power, are the power source, are the mighty ones of our families. They are the heads of the family. They are the leaders. They are the power. They are the power structure of the family. Is the elders. They are the L's. You get it? So if your L's are neglecting to do their job, then of course the children will be led astray. Of course. It makes sense, right? Leviticus chapter 26. You know what? I'm going to start at verse 36 to show the condition of what we in, and it's all because of the elders. Blame it on the elders, people. Our condition. This is not because of God. This is not because of the white man. This is not because of the curse of the Torah. We are in this situation and been in this situation for hundreds of years because of our elders. Them. Look at them with disgust, with utter disgust for what they allowed us, the children, to have to endure while they sit back and collect their Social Security check, you goddamn bastards. You should die off like the elders died off 40 years in the wilderness because you ain't no good for these people. You should die. Never to rise again. Our elders are the reason why we are in this situation. Leviticus 26 is the source of proof. Leviticus 26, I'm going to start at 36 and read down. As for those of you who are left, I will make their hearts so fearful in the earth of their enemies, or land, however you want to interpret it, okay, that the sound of a wind-blown leaf will put them to flight. They will run as though fleeing from a sword, and they will fall even though no one is pursuing them. Now, this is all because of your elders. Your elders are to blame. Your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-great-great, them. They all to blame because they didn't do their job, which is preserving the family tradition and culture and stories. It's no way that we should not know our identity when these people are right here. But they didn't teach us. They didn't say anything. We got to go to the library to find out our family history. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And these old people, these elders, need to get out of our face, get out of our way. They need to go somewhere in a corner and die because they have plagued us with their ignorance. And they have passed this curse down through the generations. Blame them, the elders. They need to die. They need to get out of here. They need to expire because they have damaged the nation. They have destroyed it. The elders. Leviticus 26 and 36. As for those of you who are left, I will make their hearts so fearful in the lands or earth of their enemies that the sound of a wind-blown leaf will put them to flight. They will run as though fleeing from a sword. They will fall even though no one is pursuing them. We are still falling. Jim Crow is over. Segregation is over. Well, not totally, but for the most part. It's over. Why are we still the bottom of society? Why are we still begging for a job? Why are we still, as a people, I'm talking about, why are we still in decrepit housing? Why are we still living in ghettos and stuff like that? Why? We still falling and no one is pursuing us. Because of our elders. It's our elders' fault why we're doing this to each other. It's our elders' fault why our children are messed up and don't know who they are and don't have no pride in self because they was never taught about self from their elders. It's their fault. Verse 37 of Leviticus 26. They will stumble over one another as though fleeing from the sword, even though no one is pursuing them. So you will not be able to stand before your enemies. You will perish among the nations, and the land of your enemies will devour you. Those of you who are left will waste away in the land of their enemies because of their sins. Also, because of their ancestors' sins, they will waste away. So, our error in path stems from our ancestors, our elders. They went wrong, they taught the next generation wrong, and next like that. So it's a ripple effect, okay, to the third, fourth generation. Of them that hate me, I will hate them. Get it? Okay. So, this video is part of the redemption theme. Okay? We need to blame I ain't uplifting an elder. I don't respect not one elder ever. Never. You are the cause of our situation. You are the reason why these white people conquered our country and putting us through all this problem. You elders, y'all are the reason for this. You're the reason why we don't own anything. We don't know who we are. We're still in the same situation that we was in 60 years ago, 70 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago. It's because of you elders. Yeah, you guys. You need to go in a corner and die with your old self because you ain't no good for us. Okay? So this live video is a redemption theme because, I mean, you talk to your elders, they stupid. You be like, yo, you too old to be stupid like this, man. You know, they don't want to hear what you got to say because they figure you young and you don't know nothing, right? I've been here, such and such. But you don't know, if you've been here that long, why are we in this situation? Why are the kids shooting up the neighborhood? Why are the households fatherless and broke up? Why families don't even get along with each other anymore? Families used to stick together. They used to live together. There'd be 30 people in the house, all this stuff. Now, you got cousins and uncles that don't even know each other. Whose fault is that? That's the elders' fault. That's the elders' fault. So the redemption theme is, listen, we need to make our elders accountable for the plague that they put on us. It's their fault. We need to make them accountable for their sins. They did this to us. And then after they did this to us, they want to turn their backs as if we're wrong. So the redemption theme is to blame the elders. Hold them accountable for what they've done. And that's according to Leviticus 26 and 40. But if they confess their sins and the sins of their ancestors or elders, their unfaithfulness and their hostility towards me, which made me hostile towards them, so that I sent them into the land of their enemies, then when their uncircumcised hearts be humbled, and they pay for their sins, I will remember my covenant with Jacob, and my covenant with Isaac, and my covenant with Abraham. And I will remember the land, for the land will be deserted by them, and will enjoy its Sabbaths while it lies desolate without them. They will pay for their sins, because they rejected my law and abhorred my decrees. Yet, in spite of this, when they are in the land of their enemies, I will not reject them to abhor them, so as to destroy them completely, breaking my covenant with them. I am the Lord their God, but for their sakes I will remember the covenant of their ancestors, whom I brought out of Egypt in the sight of the nations, to be their God. I am the Lord. So, how do we redeem ourselves? By acknowledging the fact that our elders, ancestors, are the cause of all our problems. That's according to Leviticus 26 and 40. But if they confess their sins and the sins of their ancestors, their unfaithfulness, and their hostility towards me, we are only in our sin because we was taught this by our ancestors, by our elders. We must hold our elders accountable for our condition. We must separate from our elders because they are just as much as an enemy to us as the enemy, because they cause the enemy to be able to infiltrate, conquer, and take over us because of our elders' ignorance. The elders allowed us to be taught foolishness. Our elders allowed us to be fearful and to not fight back. And then our elders have the nerve to blame us. They want to blame the youth for the ways that they act, but they act like they didn't raise the youth. You raised this generation that's out here. You didn't teach them nothing. You didn't give them no pride in nothing. And now you want to be mad when they out here crazy and lost their mind and conquered as a people. So I made this video, this live, because this is the event of our redemption. We have to acknowledge who is at fault. We know we are at fault as the children, but we cannot neglect to point the finger at the true culprit of our condition, and that is the elders. And we must recreate our 40 years in the wilderness, and we need to allow these people to die off and re-educate the youth into being a sovereign, strong, warrior nation that cares about themselves first. Shalom, shalom, people. Peace to the family. Peace to all generations. Peace to all nations. And just realize that we must confess what we've done and confess the fact that our ancestors, our elders, have written us a bad check. And we have cashed a situation that we need to be redeemed from without money. And the only way to redeem ourselves from our situation is getting rid of these elders of ours who has eaten of the sour grapes, but our teeth are on edge. They did this to us. They failed us. This is not the white man's fault. This is not Satan's fault This is not the devil's fault. This is our elders' fault. It's our elders that did not invest in our communities. And this is why we have gentrification today. It was our elders that did not support black businesses and train their children to be lawyers and judges and politicians. So the politics of today couldn't do the things that they're doing to us. This is our elders' fault. And we are following in their footsteps. The generational curse. So we have to abandon the theology of our elders, and we have to recreate or re-educate ourselves. We have to come up out of this enslavement, and we have to go into the wilderness, and we have to recreate and re-educate ourselves, just like the story or the event of when our ancestors was taken out of Egypt. And according to Ezekiel, the 20th chapter, that will happen again. The youth will uprise. But it's the elders who has led us astray. Shalom, shalom. Peace to the family. Peace to everybody that's with me. As I always like to quote the book, the verse in Bereshit or Genesis. Through thy seed, all families of the earth shall be blessed. So peace to all humanity. Shalom, shalom.